Welcome back, everyone, to the Under the Hood channel. Thank you again for joining me for today's episode. This video is for you if you are currently a graduate or undergraduate researcher, postdoc, etc., and you have questions about whether or not the work you've been doing as of late warrants authorship on any manuscript that will be produced as a result of the work. Well, before we get started, I want to congratulate you on all of the hard work that you have done. It is certainly commendable. Now let's briefly discuss the roles of various authors on a manuscript. My rule of thumb for determining, first of all, whether or not someone should be an author on a paper is to answer this question. Would this paper be the same exact product without that person's contribution? So that's the question you should ask yourself. Would that paper exist as it is without the thoughts, the ideas, and the creativity that you brought to the collaboration? If the answer is no, it wouldn't be the same paper, and that your unique contribution is evident in the final product, then you probably should be an author. There are very rare instances where I think someone should not be a co-author on a paper if they have contributed to data collection, which is what we'll talk about in just a second. In all honesty, there are some principal investigators who have a mentality of minimizing the number of authors on a paper. I don't necessarily agree with this, but this is something that should be discussed between you and the principal investigator. Now let's get into the roles of the different authors so that you can determine where you think your placement should be in the author list. The first author, the coveted position of every paper for early career researchers as well as graduate students. The first author is usually the person that is leading all of the writing, the formatting of the paper. They determine the section header titles. They are doing the bulk of the literature review, perhaps, or sometimes the literature review portion is outsourced. But for the most part, this is the person that is spending the most time with the final document to be submitted to a journal. The first author also commonly is corresponding author on a paper, meaning this is the person that will submit all of the manuscript materials and supplemental information on the journal's website. That means that the person will receive all of the update emails from the editor and is responsible for relaying that information to the rest of the co-authors. Other first author responsibilities include drafting a cover letter, which is oftentimes required at the manuscript submission stage. And essentially, you can think of the first author as the major doer of the paper. If you want that coveted first author position, most likely you will be doing the bulk of the manuscript work. Second author. This is also an important position on the paper in most STEM fields. The second author also has a heavy lift. The lift may not be as heavy as the first author in terms of text writing, but the second author is oftentimes a major generator of the data that are presented in the paper. The second author may also be the lead data analyst. So they're running the models, they are leading the protocol development in the lab, they are running the experiments, they are generating all of the data that are pretty much being presented in the paper. Sometimes the second author of a paper is listed as co-first author. That is usually designated with an asterisk or a subscript to indicate that the second author has put in equal effort compared to the first author. This could be a great position for postdoctoral researchers who are supporting graduate work. It could also be a good position for undergraduate researchers who want to pursue graduate research careers. In the case where there are 3 or more individuals that have contributed to a collaborative project, there will be middle authors. Some people dread the middle author position because the person's contribution can be seen as ambiguous or unimportant. However, I don't think there is an unimportant contribution to a paper. Usually, middle authors are conducting work that isn't necessarily related to lead writing or lead data analysis, but they are performing tasks that are necessary for that data generation and data collection. So middle authors may do repetitive sample collection. They may do repetitive sample analysis in the lab. They may also do quality assurance on data sets in preparation for the major data analysis. Middle authors oftentimes also get an opportunity to make edits to the final manuscript, and these are commendable contributions to a paper. Last but not least, the senior authors. This is also an important role to discuss for manuscripts. Generally, senior authors are the last to be listed on a paper unless they have done the work of a first author, right? Your senior authors are your principal investigators, so the person or the people that wrote the grant that supported the work. It could be the lead author's graduate advisor. So whether or not that work was funded by the graduate advisor, if they are supporting the lead author, usually they are in the senior position. The last author position could also go to the intellectual lead, whether or not they are the PI or the graduate advisor. So the intellectual lead is the person who, without their contribution, the entire idea of the paper would not exist. So that explains the roles of the authors that are listed on a paper. It is very important to talk to the senior authors or the lead PIs or the first author about your potential role as a co-author on the paper. Before you approach this person, you should have in mind where you think your contributions will place you in the order list. Always, always, always advocate for yourself because your work should not go unnoticed. We are no longer going to accept being hidden figures in research. This is an issue that oftentimes plagues marginalized scholars, and it is our ethical duties to make sure that conversations about authorship are upfront and had in all collaborative research. And just as a final thought, you do have the right to decline being listed as an author on a paper for which you feel you do not want to be a part of. If you have any other questions about authorship, feel free to drop them in the comment section, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.